There is a kind of quiet that comes in the later years of life, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of a person sitting still and finally asking themselves honest questions. Maybe you've sat in that silence too. Maybe it came in the early morning before the house woke up, or late at night when the television was off and the room felt heavier than usual. And somewhere in that quiet, a thought crept in, a gentle but persistent thought about money, about whether what you have is enough, about whether what you saved was enough, about whether there is still time. If that sounds familiar, please stay with me for a little while, because you are not alone in that feeling. Not even close. There are millions of people your age, good, hardworking, decent people sitting in their own quiet rooms, asking the very same questions. People who gave so much of their lives to family, to work, to responsibility. People who never complained. People who just kept going. And now, in this season of life, they find themselves wondering if they planned well enough, if they saved enough, if they did it right. And here's what I want you to know, gently and honestly. Most of them didn't save as much as they thought they would. Life got in the way. It always does. A medical bill here, a family emergency there, a season when the income just wasn't what it used to be. That is not failure. That is simply the reality of a life actually lived. But something shifts when a person reaches a certain age, something quiet and powerful. They stop pretending. They stop putting things off. They look at what they have, and they ask not in panic, but in genuine curiosity what is actually possible from here. That question is not a sign of weakness. That question is the beginning of something real. I want to tell you about someone. Her name isn't important. What matters is that she was 71 years old, living on a small fixed income, and she made a decision one ordinary Tuesday morning. Not a dramatic decision, not a loud one, just a quiet turning of the page. She looked at what came in every month. She looked at what went out, and she simply began to pay attention, not with stress, not with shame, just with open, honest eyes. She didn't have much. By most measures, what she brought in each month was modest, very modest, and yet something changed for her over the following months, slowly, steadily, like water finding its way through stone. She didn't cut everything. She didn't deprive herself. She didn't follow complicated plans or charts or advice that made her head spin. She simply started noticing where her money went without her really choosing it, noticing the small habits that had formed over decades, quietly pulling at her resources without her ever giving them permission. Have you ever looked at your bank statement and found something that surprised you? A charge you forgot about, a subscription that had been running for years, a habit. So, Doc, automatic, you never even saw it as a choice. Most of us have. And most of us have felt a small flash of something when we saw it. Not regret exactly, more like recognition. Oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. That recognition is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be grateful for, because recognition is the beginning of choice. And choice, even in small amounts, is a form of freedom. She began making small choices, one by one, without forcing herself, without punishing herself for the past. She would look at something and simply ask, does this bring me something real? Does this serve who I am now in this chapter of my life? And if the answer was no, or even a quiet maybe not, she would gently let it go. It wasn't dramatic. Most meaningful things aren't. But over weeks and then months, something began to accumulate. Not just in her account, though that changed too. Something accumulated inside her, a kind of steadiness, a kind of confidence that had nothing to do with numbers. It was the confidence of a person who finally felt like they were making conscious decisions about their own life. Not reacting, not drifting, choosing. There is something about that feeling that is hard to describe to someone who hasn't experienced it. It is not excitement. Excitement fades. It is something quieter and stronger than that. It is the feeling of standing on solid ground. She told someone close to her, months later, that she hadn't changed her life. She had just started paying attention to it. And somehow that was enough. Now I want to speak to you directly for a moment. not as a voice with advice, as a presence that genuinely understands where you might be right now. You may be wondering if your situation is too far along, if the window has closed, if the decisions you made or didn't make decades ago have already written the ending. And I want you to sit with this thought gently. The ending is not written. It never is until it is. And you are still here, still thinking, still asking questions. That matters more than you might believe. People change their financial lives in their 60s, in their 70s, not by performing miracles, not by taking risks that keep them up at night, but by becoming more aware, more honest, more intentional. That is available to anyone, including you. It doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with a moment of looking clearly at where you are, without judgment, without shame, and without the pressure to have done it differently. You did what you could with what you had and what you knew. That is true for almost every person who has ever lived. And now you have different knowledge and perhaps a different kind of patience. The patience that only comes from having truly lived. What becomes possible when a person stops looking backward with regret and simply turns to face what is in front of them is often more than they expected. Not in a magical sense, in a very human, very real, very gradual. Sense. Small adjustments made consistently over time change things, not overnight, not dramatically, but truly. And perhaps more importantly, the act of making those adjustments changes something inside a person. It restores a sense of agency, a sense of authorship over one's own life. And at any age, that feeling is worth more than any specific number in any account. She never talked about what she saved as an achievement. She talked about it as something that happened naturally, almost quietly, when she simply started being honest with herself. And I think that is the most important thing I can leave you with today. Not a strategy, not a formula, not a promise. Just this. Honesty with yourself, practiced gently and without cruelty, has a way of clearing a path you didn't know was there. You are not behind. You are exactly where you are. And from here, you can still choose, quietly, steadily, one small, honest decision at a time. That is enough. You are enough. And there is still time